Okay, so we are a few months removed from the latest round of Pride Month celebrations, which of course is when there are the vast majority of brands that are celebrating with the LGBTQ plus community during Pride Month specifically. And many of those brands by this time have already officially gone back to business as usual, which unfortunately in a lot of cases means that brands aren't paying attention to the LGBTQ plus community at all. So that's why we're having this conversation today, celebrating the LGBTQ plus community. If this is a community that your brand has specifically chosen to serve, is more than just showing up for them during 1 month of the year. Doing that is kind of like celebrating someone's birthday with them and then ghosting them for the rest of the year. Not cool at all. To make the LGBTQ plus community really feel like they belong with your company, it's important to build an inclusive brand that makes them feel seen and supported every time they interact with your brand. So after this short break, we're going to walk through how you can do that. Okay, did you know that most businesses only use 20% of their data? That's like reading a book with most of the pages torn out or paying for a coffee that's just 1/5 full. Point is, you miss a lot unless you use HubSpot. Their customer platform gives you access to the data you need to grow your business. The insights trapped in emails, call logs, and transcripts, all that unstructured data that makes all the difference. Because when you know more, you grow more. And when you get a full cup of coffee, you can do more too. But I digress. Visit HubSpot.com today. The first thing I want to talk to you about as it relates to building an LGBTQ plus inclusive brand that's inclusive all year long for this community is moving beyond being LGBTQ plus friendly. Now, most brands that have customers who are LGBTQ plus would consider themselves to be friendly to the community. However, friendly isn't the marker brands should strive for. Hank Paul is a non-binary queer inclusion strategist who I chatted with on this podcast way back when. It was episode number 58, How to Build an LGBTQ plus inclusive brand with Hank Paul. I'll drop a link to that in the show notes for you. If you haven't listened to it, it was really insightful. So in that episode, Hank said that to be LGBTQ plus friendly is to say you are welcome here. You can come here. That's fine. We'll put up with you. We'll take your money. We'll take your business. We're not going to make things hard for you. According to Hank, that is a level of acceptance, but it doesn't really extend much further beyond that.
I think to be LGBTQ plus friendly is to say, you're welcome here. Like, you can come here. That's fine. We'll put up with you almost. There's not, we'll take your money. We'll take your business. We're not going to make things hard for you. It's a level of acceptance, but it doesn't really extend much further beyond that, right?
Yes.
And particularly in that business context, it is very much like, oh, you want to be a customer? Great. We'll take your money. We love that. I think the difference is being LGBTQ plus inclusive is that proactive approach to creating safe spaces and environments. And safe spaces and environments are, that's not just physical, that's on your mailing list and on your website and on your live calls, in your podcast, how are you actually going out of your way to ensure that people in the LGBTQ plus community are feeling safe, seen, and celebrated in your business?
So here's what proactively creating safe spaces and environments within your customer experience could look like in practice. That could be ensuring that everyone places their pronouns in their screen names for virtual meetings or on name tags for staff in physical stores. It could mean being representative of the community in your marketing and visual imagery. And it could also mean getting involved in and or supporting organizations that do work to uplift and tackle important issues the community is facing. Now, once you've made this ally shift, it'll be easier for you to take the next step, which will support you in becoming an LGBTQ plus inclusive brand. And that step is leaning into allyship. Okay, so being inclusive isn't just about getting people from a specific marginalized community to buy more of your stuff. There's a lot more involved in winning the loyalty of consumers that are already skeptical of brands after having been excluded and ignored by them for so long. So taking the time to care about the communities you serve beyond just your product offering will demonstrate that your brand is one they can be loyal to. Now, according to Hank Paul, there are 3 steps to embracing your brand's role as an ally. The first is all about awareness. Now, this is about educating yourself, your team, and even in some instances, your existing customers about the LGBTQ plus community. This could be as simple as understanding the various identities within the community, learning terminology, and most importantly, developing a deep degree of empathy for the community and its plight. So don't think of awareness as something you can check off with simple training. It's an ongoing learning process, much like you continue to learn and grow with the friends in your life. The second component of leaning into allyship is all about amplification. Now, this component is all about lifting up the voices, experiences, and perspectives of people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. You can do this by sharing your platform with others. Some brands do this by featuring experts in areas that are relevant to your customers, such as in a podcast or a conference. Some brands do this by featuring experts in areas that are relevant to your customers, such as in a podcast or a conference. Now, others do it by co-creating with people within the community on relevant projects and products. And other brands do it by sharing the content and work of those who are part of the community you want to elevate. Now, Blair Amani is someone that I follow on Instagram, and she's got this really great show called Smarter in Seconds. And one of the things that Blair is great about doing is amplifying the voices of others, particularly on topics that she might not have the full expertise on, or she might not have the lived experiences on, but she wants to educate others on. So I'm going to drop a link to a post that she did, which was a collaboration from someone from the intersex community, as Blair was explaining this on her signature series, What Intersex Is. And the third component of allyship is action. This is where your brand is making adjustments within your business that will demonstrate that you support the LGBTQ plus community. Now, that can mean you are incorporating policies that prove the community belongs with you. For instance, since 2002, the Human Rights Campaign Foundation has used its Corporate Equality Index, or CEI, as a benchmarking tool to track and evaluate how well employers do with policies, practices, and benefits for LGBTQ plus employees. As of their 2022 benchmarking, they've identified 662 major businesses that have adopted transition guidelines, and 91% of CE&I-rated companies offer at least one transgender-inclusive healthcare plan option. Other actions brands are taking include adding gender-neutral restrooms, hiring people in the community, degendering their language, and focusing on being more representative of the LGBTQ plus community in their marketing. Paul also recommends that brands reevaluate how they've defined who their ideal customer is. Now, their advice specifically is to, quote, go back and evaluate your ideal market or your ideal customer avatar, however you've kind of structured that and defined that in your brand, and how much you are relying on someone being a default gender or sexuality. Are you assuming or have you made it explicit, end quote. Once you've clarified your ideal customer to be specifically inclusive of people who identify as LGBTQ+, then you will be better equipped to engage in the next phase that demonstrates to the community that they do belong with you. So after this short break, we're going to go through another area you can focus on to build an LGBTQ+ inclusive brand all year long. Okay, I've got another podcast recommendation for you. It's Augmenters, hosted by Julie Meyer and Jimmy Edgerton, and it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. So on this show, Julie and Jimmy dive into mentoring and explore ways to augment and refresh the mentoring environment. They're using 8 core principles that weave relevant spirit guides and diverse guests, and Julie and Jimmy use a lot of humor and practical tips to help mentors and mentees get further, faster together. There's so many great episodes to tune into for this show, but one that you might find especially interesting is their latest episode, number 120, Mentoring Across Gender, Men as Allies and Mentors. Listen to Augmenters wherever you get your podcasts. All right. The next area that you can focus your brand on in regards to building an LGBTQ plus inclusive brand is incorporating gender neutrality. Now, there are specific tactics you can take that support being a gender inclusive brand. However, moving beyond just tactics to having the right mindset and policies around this approach will enable you to have the biggest impact. As a result, you'll be equipped to infuse this philosophy into how your organization thinks and ultimately into the products, services, and experiences you deliver. Gender creeps into brand experiences in many ways, including in bathrooms and bathroom labels, in language, surveys and questionnaires, clothing labels, and more. I'll bet that if you were to even look at how you've defined your customer base, one of the ways that data is broken down is by gender. Paul suggests that brands take the time to think specifically about why data capture is needed at the gender level.
Now, when I buy this shirt, I will typically buy this from a quote unquote women's store or women's section of a store. Mm-hmm. And if someone is capturing my email address to put onto a list and to, do some email marketing to me, and they ask me my gender and the option is male or female, well, I'm assigned male at birth. And if I'm given that binary choice, which is an uncomfortable question for me to get asked a lot of the time, I'll select male because I've only been given one choice. That's not my gender, but that is the sex that I was assigned at birth. And so what that then means is this company can't actually market, because they've obviously made some choices in their marketing department and business model, that there are certain clothes that we market to men and certain clothes that we market to women. I would rather you ask me much more intentional questions that are more relevant to the thing you're trying to sell me. Are you interested in dresses? Are you interested in suits? Are you interested in skirts? Are you interested in handbags? Ask me those sorts of questions. They are not gendered. They're gender neutral questions, but you get more insightful information that can then help you segment to send me email marketing that is relevant to things that I might actually buy.
Asking gendered questions can put some of the customers you serve in an uncomfortable position that makes them not feel like they belong with you. Paul adds that a better way is to ask questions that will better help you serve the customers who've entered into your ecosystem. In addition, Paul explains that asking gendered questions in a marketing context often means the brand is chosen from a segmentation standpoint, that there are certain items they market to men and others to women, which is limiting and not always the best experience. Paul offers up a better option for brands. I would rather you ask me much more intentional questions that are more relevant to the thing you're trying to sell me. Are you interested in dresses? Are you interested in suits? Are you interested in skirts? Are you interested in handbags? Ask me those sorts of questions. They are not gendered, they're gender neutral questions, but you get more insightful information that can then help you segment to send me email marketing that is relevant to the things I might actually buy. All right, so start here to build an LGBTQ plus inclusive brand. Follow these recommendations that I just laid out for you with the wonderful insight and guidance from Hank Paul. Whenever you do, you'll build a brand where the LGBTQ plus community, along with those who love and support them, feel like they belong with you. And as a result, they reward you with both their attention and their loyalty. That's it for today's episode. I would so appreciate it if you would share it with a friend, colleague in your network. It really does go a long way towards helping more people discover the show and helping more people practice inclusion all year long. And specifically as it relates to the LGBTQ plus community, gives very practical ways in which they can go about making this community feel seen, supported, and like they belong with your brand all year long. Also, if you are feeling generous, it would be so great if you leave a rating and review for the show in your podcast player of choice. That also contributes a long way towards helping more people discover the show. One other quick question for you. Are you getting the Inclusion and Marketing newsletter? If not, really, what are you even doing? Each week, I send news, insights, and other cool tips, commentaries, and all sorts of other resources and goodies to help you attract and retain a bigger, more diverse, and fiercely loyal customer base. Go to inclusioninmarketing.com/newsletter to get signed up, and I will drop a link to that in the show notes for you as well. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves to have a place where they belong. Let's use our individual and collective power to ensure more people feel like they do. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon.